when I should have let myself but I couldn't have. Oh no, I couldn't have. I always open my gut when I shouldn't have. Oh no, I shouldn't have.
I think that's why we love fitness so much, right? It's a little bit off the cusp. It's the soft skills. It's okay, like, we've got the program, we've got things written down, what we want to achieve. But at the end of the day, like, the person in front of us is what's going to dictate what we're actually going to do. And, our eyes on them and how they act and all that type of stuff. So it's good.
Exactly.
It's good going off the cusp, shooting from the hip, as they say, right?
Do it.
Coach, this is a privilege, a real big
Thank
privilege.
you. Well, it's a privilege for me. I mean, I enjoy doing this kind of stuff anyway. It's fun to share knowledge, and people throughout the world, I mean, in my lifetime have shared knowledge with me going back into the 1960s and when I was in high school and college. And I would go seek out the best there was and try to get as much information as I could, because I had this passion for strength and conditioning to make myself a better so I enjoy doing this.
Can you hear me, Coach?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, I think we just cut out there. It's like I'm in Middle Earth. We need polystyrene cuts and a piece of string, and it will probably be a stronger connection.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I think sharing the knowledge is one of the beautiful things about this thing, right? Strength and conditioning, of fitness, health, longevity, performance. Like, okay, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, I'm trying this. All right, let's try that with this demographic, this population. I was like, well, it doesn't work. Okay, cool. But there's something that will be working within it.
Yeah.
And it's just that little sharing of knowledge and staying behind after sessions and shooting the breeze, or shooting the shit, as we call it back home. And it's, it's like, oh, that sounds like a really bad idea. Let's give it a try and see if it works.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, I mean, my passion's Olympic style weightlifting, but at the same time, that's not going to be what I've learned, is that I cannot, hit people in the head with my passion for Olympic style weightlifting if they're not going to do it. So, you got to find something as a coach, you got to find something that is going to be beneficial for them, that they'll accept, and as a high school teacher and coach, I had a weightlifting team, and, 70% of my students were really into the Olympic lifts, but that meant 30% weren't, so, maybe 15% wanted to be power lifters. They didn't want to do the speed movements. They didn't want to do the snatch and clean and jerk. And, then another 10% wanted to be bodybuilders. They wanted the big guns, especially the boys, and then, then the girls come along, and in the, 70s and 80s, and all of a sudden they want to start, getting fit. Prior to that, women, they didn't lift weights at all. They felt like it was very manly, and they didn't want to do that kind of stuff. But my point is that you, as a teacher and a coach, an instructor, people are coming to you for your knowledge, and you don't want to turn them away just because you're the Olympic weightlifting guy. You want to get all your knowledge you can, so you can help as many people as you can. So I mean, in my world, my strength coaches were men of many hats. They used it all. They taught me a concept called yes to the fourth power, and basically is their programs for athletics. If you were doing exercises with your feet on the ground, and you were using multiple joints and multiple muscle groups, and you were using free weight exercises and you were doing them in an explosive manner 75% of the time, then you had a good program. Then that left the 25% of the time for other endeavors that you wanted to do, bodybuilding, powerlifting, or whatever, whatever you wanted to do. So I kind of put my hat on that early in my career, and I pretty much stayed with that, until I really got big into coaching Olympic style weightlifting at the national and the international level. Then it was, at that point, it was the people I dealt with were 99% of them were Olympic weightlifters, so.
People definitely neglect the basics, right? They want the fluffy stuff, the sexy stuff that they can, especially now, post on Instagram. And
Yeah.
I've got the new exercise. I was like, well, if it's circular and it spins, guess what? It's still a wheel. We don't need to reinvent it. You just have to get really good at the basics and then try and learn them again, in a
Yeah.
different form. And I think I fell in love with the old Soviet system of like everyone got stripped down and we did some GPP. There was crawling, there was running, there was rowing, there was
Yeah.
lifting, there was you were going to be exposed to everything. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Because there's always something that you can learn, right? So I remember putting like rocks in a backpack and sticking them on my back and like trying to do some squats or dips between my bins and stuff like that, right? And it was just like, well, how can you expose yourself to as wider base of stimulus as possible, and then you can hone it in. And the sport back in the day was rugby, so I had to chase an egg around. But
Yeah. Well, and you come from a great rugby country. I mean, I've worked with the Franks brothers, and they've been out here at my house. And right now, there's a rugby team called Legions in the United States, and they're in San Diego, and 50% of those guys are former All Blacks.
wow,
They go. I'm really into cold plunging, and so I go down to this place called Breathe Degrees in a small community in south of me, and every day there's at least 5 or 6 former All Blacks and Legion rugby athletes using that facility.
wow,
So I mean, you've got to coming up with exercises, and it's in that GPP type things is what we end up losing out in early. And people come to me and they say, well, what do you do? And I say, well, for me, I do, if I have a kid, a youngster that wants to come up and be part of our program, I don't start him out with barbell exercises. I start him out with body weight exercises before barbell exercises. And I use the example of a body weight exercise is a PVC pipe.
yeah,
A PVC pipe weighs, I don't know how many ounces or grams, it is, but I can do range of motion movement patterns. I can do, bar path type of scenarios using that PVC pipe. And I count that as, body weight exercises. So we always, I mean, I got a grandson that's 11 and a granddaughter that's 7, and they're both snatching and clean and jerking. Man, and but they started out with their mother, and she's a fire breather, and they just watched her, and she does, had them doing PVC pipe stuff, and they could do pull-ups and lunges and body weight squats and push-ups and all that kind of stuff. And then she taught them how to snatch and clean and jerk as well.
sure. I often quite think like when you got athletes who are real young and they're not even athletes yet. Let's be honest, they're kids. It's
Yeah,
like if we get them to move correctly, how many people can we avoid breaking? So then we have
yeah,
to fix them when they're adults, right? Like we
yeah,
play sport, contact sport, American football for you guys, lacrosse, basketball, rugby, swimming,
yeah,
whatever it is, right? They
right,
develop all these deficiencies, and then they get to the local CrossFit gym or the yoga studio or whatever it is, and they try and move around, and their shoulders are all banged up. They don't know how to
yeah,
squat. They can't hinge, and
yeah,
it's like, well, we could avoid pulling a percentage out my ass. I don't know, but we could avoid 90% injuries just by literally avoiding them, preventing them from happening. Of let's learn some biomechanics. Let's be able to squat.
yeah. Yeah, and getting that mobility. I mean, people ask me, well, how do you make an Olympic weightlifter? I say, well, there's three things you got to have to be a good Olympic weightlifter. And that's mobility, speed, and strength in that order. And if you don't have good mobility, then it's going to take longer to get to those other two. But, we're going to work on mobility, and yeah, we'll use PVC pipe, but if you can only squat down 6 inches with the bar in the proper, position in a snatch, as an example, well, your ankle mobility is going to be worked on heavily, and your shoulder mobility is going to be worked on, and you're probably going to get real frustrated with me because I'm not going to let you lift heavier weights until we get that mobility down. And once we have the mobility where we need to have it, then we can work on our speed, through the development of the third pull and the energy source from the bar, and then we can work on our strength. The strength is the easiest thing to get, but if I don't have the mobility first in Olympic style weightlifting anyway, then I'm just going to have a harder time with it.
Agreed. And I would argue that we'd be doing them a disservice, right?
Yeah.
If we like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. It's like we
Oh
can build
yes.
up to a plateau number, and there's always going to be a ceiling, and it's
Yeah.
drastically lower than what they could have hit in the longer
Yeah.
term if we'd have taken a smaller, longer term approach with like smaller steps, right, rather than jumping.
Well, and then the idea of understanding that, a snatch in the real world is a missed power snatch. Right? The pull is exactly the same. I mean, if I drive the bar hard against the ground and I create acceleration and elevation on that barbell and I pull my body to the bar rather than trying to pull the bar up, then I understand as the weight gets heavier, the pull is going to be the same, but I have to go to the bar. I'm pulling my body down and around this barbell and I'm going to receive it at whatever depth the weight requires me to go down. But if I can't get low, then it's stupid for me to keep adding weight on somebody. If I can get them to understand that a snatch is a missed power snatch, then I can power snatch them the right way, not pulling the bar up, but driving the bar and pulling my body to the bar, and I can get that mobility going. I'm on my way to at least getting them to understand that it takes time, and we'll be able to achieve what you need to achieve if you'll stay with the right patterns.
Hugely, hugely common mistake, isn't it? Pulling on that bar, getting the arms involved, trying to
Yeah.
pull a little too early. It's like, oh, it's gone above my head. I was like, okay, congratulations. It's
Yeah.
gone from A to B,
Yeah.
right? But it's not
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
The car's
No,
got to the party, but it's losing a few wheels.
yeah, no, and when I teach my courses, the biggest concept that we have is to understand that the ground is my energy source. That's where I go to. My feet are going to drive hard against this implement to create that acceleration and elevation on the barbell. But what a lot of coaches, they teach the three pulls. They teach the first pull from the ground to mid thigh, second pull from the mid thigh to the finish position. But they fail to teach, in my opinion, the correct path of understanding that the third pull, that's the pull under. That third pull is really accelerated when I use the bar as an energy source. So what ends up happening, people will go from the first pull to the second pull. Then when they go to the third pull, instead of pulling their body down and utilizing that bar as an energy source, they just drop and try to catch. So when you use
Yeah.
terms like dropping and catching, you it's too slow. It's not going to be there. But to understand that, okay, my first energy source is the ground. That's the first pull, the second pull. But the third pull is the beginning of using that secondary energy source, which is the bar, because the bar is going to go up and it's going to come down. Well, if I can use my arms as my feet slide out, I can't pull a barbell up if my feet are off the ground. But what that does, that energy from the barbell shoots me underneath the barbell. Now I still got to turn it over and I still got to receive it and I got to punch it out in the right position. But when my athletes found out that, oh shit, the barbell becomes my energy source after the ground base, they get it and they will continue pulling hard. So they'll understand that the feet moving from that good jumping power position and sliding out to not jumping out, but sliding out. That moment that those feet start sliding is the instant that I start pulling, and that just shoots me underneath the bar. So the understanding that that takes place, when they get it, it's like, oh,
Hmm.
oh gosh, I feel it. I see it, you know. And again, all the other stuff, you know, you got to do the drop snatches and you got to punch the bar and you got to receive it in the right position. That's all drill, 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 drill. But the most people fail in the snatch and the clean and the jerk because they don't understand when the weight starts getting heavier, I better be moving faster. You know, they still trying to pull the bar up or push the bar up over their head. And, you know, it's core to extremity, right? I mean, I've got two arms that are very weak compared to my legs, my ass, you know, my feet, and the ground is an energy source.
Mhm.
That's where I get this thing starting to move. And if I can get that in their skulls and that, you know, that brain housing group of theirs, then the chance of them being successful is much greater, you know, than just trying to muscle the bar up and pull it up like an upright row. Yeah. So
It's like it's the choice of vocabulary that we use as coaches, right? Like one of my pet peeves, I'm not gonna lie to you, coach, is drop.
yeah.
I can't stand it. I can't stand it because people do. They take your word as gospel and they're like, okay,
Right.
coach, I'm gonna drop. And they
Yeah.
drop and they're passive and they're slow and they
Yeah.
get slammed down and spat out. And you're like,
Right.
well, we might have just broke somebody there. Like that's
Yeah.
not good. Like the whole thing
Yeah.
needs to be active, right? And
Yeah.
fast and yeah, drop.
And I use the same thing with catch because every person in the United States, probably other than my athletes, you know, they're always talking about, will you catch it here? And I'm going to, well, if I throw you a football, you know, or a rugby ball and you catch it overhead like this, you don't just have brick hands. What do you
Yeah.
have? You throw it, you have soft hands.
So
Every coach in the football world, in American football, talk about having soft hands when you catch the ball. You know, when you catch a baseball with a glove on, you have soft hands. Well, fuck, I don't want soft hands. You know, I mean, soft hands is nothing. I want to receive and punch the living dickens out of that barbell, right? So for me, dropping and catching is a vocabulary term that is verboten. And you know, and if I'm coaching with anybody and they use that vocabulary, you know, I'll correct them immediately.
mhm,
I won't allow them to use that without being corrected. You know, they'll forget, but I'll say no, receive, no punch, you know,
mhm, mhm.
no, it's not dropping, you know, it's pulling your body down. And, you know, just so they'll hopefully learn that, you know, don't use that that vocabulary.
I used to train out of a really, really small weightlifting gym in the northwest of England, right? And it was like there was 6 platforms. They couldn't go toe to toe because it was so narrow. So they had to go a little off center. So it was like a zip. You know, there's buckets everywhere because it was leaking, you know, just a grungy, grungy place. And if you said something wrong, you used to get a 1.25 kilo plate chucked in your direction. And you best be fucking fast to get out of the way of that one. And it's like, oh, okay, understood. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
feel my
yeah,
ankle now, but I will not be saying that again. No
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
And
And
oh,
that's, and see, that's old school. I was brought up on old school, you know, and it was, and anybody that goes against old school is crazy because that's why we're so soft today, is that we don't have enough old school stuff going on.
well, it works. You know, I think you see a little bit of a trend coming out now, right, of doing hard things. And I think that's brilliant. We need to be
Yeah,
able to persevere through things and do things simply because they had, and let's figure out the lessons we're going to get in that, right? But I think it's also the same of like coaching and teaching, and yeah, there is a line. You don't want to bully someone, you don't want to like take it too far, but there is a line where it's like, well, we need a band together and we need to do this. And then it's our job to then be able to extract them out of that mindset at the end of the session, right? With the cool downs, talk to them, how's it going? You know,
right,
same with the
right,
warm ups, but you know,
right,
there's a standard for a reason and you're going to fucking hold it.
right, right. And you know, the other thing too, there's people out there, and I've had a ton of them that, and I believe me, I've made every mistake in the book. when it comes to coaching. There hasn't been a mistake that I haven't made. But at the same time, every mistake I have made has been with, you know, the idea this is the right way for this person. And the way I coach you is a lot different than the way I coach this guy over here, because this guy over here has got so thin skin that if you say anything negative to him at all, then he'll break down.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you don't, as a coach, you don't want to do that. And it's the same thing with working with female athletes.
yeah.
90% of the female athletes are going to be thin skinned, and then you're going to have those 10% that are just junkyard dogs, and they don't give a shit what you say to them. But at the same time, there's 10% of the men that are going to be thin skinned, and 90% of the men are going to be bring it on, I don't care type thing. It's just the way it is. But you as a coach have got to be able to discern that, and
Mm,
the other thing too is like I always said, I'm always looking for better ways. I have my philosophy, and it's worked really well. But at the same time, I've found better ways to do something. I'll change, and it might be better ways to do something for this athlete, and it's just no, I've tried everything for this person, and now it's not working. So, all of a sudden I try something different. I have a guy right now that has such terrible, and he's a great tennis player, great pickleball player, but his snatches, he has such a wide grip because his shoulders, he's got longer arms too, but his shoulders are so tight that when he actually snatches, he takes the hand collar to collar, but then he slides it out on the sleeve on the turnover.
mm.
I said, you can't do that. That's illegal, number one. But he does. He puts it right there on that knob there where the weights come on. And so we switched him over to a split snatch. And he went from snatching 50 or 60 kilos to now he's snatching 100 kilos. Just
Wow.
because he's an athlete, but that split, it just takes longer to get in that position. So the bar's got to go a little bit higher, and a split guy will never be able to snatch as much as a good squat snatch guy, right? Because of the height of the bar and the speed on the bar. But nevertheless, I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody, making them split snatch. But in order to compete, that's what they do. And there's no difference. The pull's the same. It's
Mm.
just receiving it in that split style versus a squat style.
Yeah, and you'd rather them split snatch rather than not snatch, right?
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
It's like
That's what we do.
same with squatting to a box.
Yeah,
It's,
exactly.
it's like great,
Exactly.
or deadlifting off blocks, whatever. I'd rather you do
Doesn't
these
matter.
things than come up with an excuse or use things as an excuse of like, no, my elbow, I'm a little bunged up. I was like, cool, let's just adapt it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, I work with the geezers here on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and you know, at least you're squatting, right? And they said, well, I can't squat. I said, well, you squat to the shitter every day, and so, well, that's not a squat, is it? And I said, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Glassman says, well, you do stand to squat, right? Or squat to stand, and
Mm,
whatever. So go down and pick up those keys, and they want to bend over. No, squat down there and pick them up.
mm,
And then they'll squat down there. So now we got them squatting at least to, like you said, to the boxes, to the
mm.
to the benches. At least they're squatting.
I used to
So
take a team down in Christchurch in the South Island, and we worked with a bunch of people with neurodivergence, or maybe they got a bit of physical abnormalities, basically, part of the disabled community.
right.
And we had, like you play musical chairs. So you got a line of chairs and then it backs onto another line of chairs that are faced in a different direction. And we'd have them all there with their arms out, thumbs up, waving, jazz hands, whatever they wanted to do. Some of them gave me the old birds. They gave me the middle finger, but that's fair enough. I gave them too many too many hints. And yeah, they would squat to a chair and they would stand up, right? And
Right.
I remember looking at the people at the carers, and they'll be like, "Well, what are these lads doing? Like they're making them squat to a chair." And I was like, "Yeah, because it's now real world application, and also they are in fact squatting rather
Right.
than just like relying on the handrails because
Right.
some of them
Right.
are dealt a pretty poor hand, and it's like, no, I might go over and give them my index finger, and they're going to grab hold of it and try and
Right,
yank it off my hand.
right,
But
right.
it's only a little bit of stability, and they're still squatting to that chair. They're still standing
Absolutely.
tall, and I'm like, they're still going to get a high five, still
Yep.
going to get a fuck yeah, and I'm still going
Yep.
to see them next week. It's
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you
necessity.
take some 90-year-old and have her squat down to a chair, she might not be able to get back up. But if you give her your hands, she's more confident and she'll do her
Yeah.
best to stand back up. And you can offload her. You can help her out a little bit and assist her, and she's still squatting. That the best thing for her not to do is not to squat.
Mm,
Is just sit in the chair and not get up,
mm.
and there's the real problem I think that's happening with. But I think people in today, the older I'm 78, right? And it's very important for me. I want to live a quality life. I don't want to go, be 80 and I can't do anything. God forbid if I whatever. But I'm gonna work my ass off to be able to get up and start working and walking and doing things, lifting weights. I can still do pull-ups, I can still do push-ups, I can still squat. I can still do trap bar deadlifts. I can do kettlebells. So I can do all of that stuff now. And I've got a group of guys here that will follow me doing that kind of stuff. And then that's very good for them, So it's
It's
when you
all
don't, problem.
it's also inspiring to see as well, not in the sense of, oh, look what they can achieve, but of just like they're getting after it. So
Yeah,
I got to get after it.
yeah, exactly.
I said it to me. I said it to me class. What day are we? We're Wednesday over here. So I said it to them yesterday. The workout came up, fucking horrendous. Didn't want to do it. I was like, that looks miserable. I don't want to do that. I would rather do some bench press, some squats, some snatching. I'd rather get some weights in my hand, And it was like working out of a CrossFit gym. And I was like, you know what? Nah, these folks are gonna come in the evening, and they might have had a good day, or they might have had a shit day, and they're still gonna get after it.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? Because they're getting after it, I'm gonna have to do the same. And you
Yeah,
feel so much better afterwards,
yeah,
like
yeah,
mental clarity. Your back feels a little looser. Fingers
yeah,
crossed.
yeah.
It
No,
so much better for you. So much better for you.
yeah, it is. That's the lifestyle I want to lead, and it sounds like you do too. So that's good things.
I think we're making a little bit of a turning point. I think CrossFit's done a good job. I think it went down the path of performance, and now it's kind of broadening its range a little bit, which is fantastic. Because 99.9% of people aren't going to make a living from exercising. It's fucking hard to do that.
Right.
So I think more people are now opening up their mindset of like, oh, maybe we do the triathlon. Just a
Yeah.
sprint triathlon and have fun on the weekend, or play some pickleball, or learn some weightlifting, because I don't need to be number one in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
just do it to live a better life.
Yeah. That's what I like about Go Ruck and the stuff that they're doing right now.
Yeah.
It's all interrelated. But the thing about the CrossFit games are performance based, and Glassman hated the CrossFit games. He didn't like them at all. He wanted you to be able to pick. If I throw 100 exercises in a big hopper, and
Mm-hmm.
you pull out 10 exercises, the CrossFit guy who's unspecial, he's not specialized. He's just a good physical fitness maniac. He can take those 10 exercises and do very well with them. He may not be great at any of them, but he'll do very well. Where you take the guy that's the Olympic weightlifter, he's hoping to get the snatch and clean and jerk in there. The triathlete wants run, bike, swim. Those are the guys that. But the Glassman's idea is to make this a global fitness regime so everybody can be fit, and I think he did a great job. It's when
Me
you
too.
specialize that you take away the general society of being a fit society, and
Mm.
um, I always liked his analogy that his goal was to have a CrossFit gym on every corner that there was a Starbucks in America, we want a CrossFit gym there, so that I'm going to go to this CrossFit gym because, Johnny over here knows my name. He knows my exercises. Just like over here at that Starbucks, that barista knows what I want every single morning. He's got it
Mhm.
ready for me. And over here, this CrossFit trainer knows Coach B and what he likes and doesn't like, and he's going to cater to that, and so I feel comfortable. And that's what his mission was. And I thought he did a hell of a good job with that.
Me too.
So yeah. Yeah, he's a lot of people didn't like him, but boy, I'll tell you what, he is a smart man. He's got his shit together, I'll guarantee you.
One of those where you listen to him talk and you're like, oh, okay, I am a few leagues below you.
Oh yeah.
I gotta take notes because then I need to refer to a thesaurus, a dummy's guide to breaking this down, and then I can actually understand it. But that's the
Yeah.
point. That's what we need to
Yeah,
do.
it's all good.
Learn the basics. But
Okay.
coach, I got three questions.
Yep.
What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Oh boy. Um, Life advice. I think the best life advice I've ever been given to me came out of the United States Marine Corps, basically, at a young age, is that, never ask somebody else to do something that you're not willing to do. And lead by example. Be sound, in what you do, be honorable in what you do. But if you're going to be a coach or a teacher or whatever, never ask somebody to do something that you're yourself's not willing to do. So I would have to say that's probably the best advice I've ever been. That's what I've tried to lead in my teaching and coaching in my time in the military service. I tried to lead like that.
Beautiful. What's the worst piece of life advice you ever received?
Um, oh my goodness. I have to really think about that. I think looking back at all the things that I've done over the years, I think the worst advice that I was given is to get out of the military service. Um, and there wasn't a good reason for me to get out other than my wife wanted me to get out. Uh, but that looking back, it worked out fine because if I stayed in the military service, I may have not ever found CrossFit. But with my personality and the things that I'm all about, that path, you know, set me in the right direction. So for me to get out of that path, which I didn't want to do, uh, was probably the thing that I probably shouldn't have listened to.
One more question, coach.
Yeah.
What are the three words you would tell your younger self?
Three words. Never give up.
Mm.
Yeah, that's I think that's the thing that my dad, when I was growing up, he just pushed that, never quit, never give up, give 100%, and if you get your ass knocked down, get back up. If you get knocked down again, get back up. Don't ever, ever, ever give up. Yeah.
There's a lot of beauty in that. I think a lot more people these days need to hear that
Yeah, yeah,
than we
exactly.
realize.
Yeah.
Get the fuck up. That must be the northern way of putting it, but anyway.
Oh, I like that way better. I mean, I tell people that take my courses, I say, look, I'm a geezer, I'm harmless, but I do have a foul mouth.
Yeah,
So, if you take it personally, uh,
this is
I'm
going to be a
sorry.
rough course. Yeah,
It's going to be rough, but I'm going to try not to,
yeah,
but I will guarantee you I will use the bad words in my course.
110%. I got to put a little asterisk next to my coaching as well. Yeah, guys, just so you know, yeah, there's probably going to be some colorful language coming out, and yeah, we're going to get through this unscathed.
Exactly. That's exactly.
Coach, honestly, this has been an honor and a privilege, mate. Like, I couldn't thank you enough. I've done your course a long time ago, many years ago now. Soph actually was there in the south of the UK. She took it and kicked my ass.
Oh,
obviously. Learned so much, always reading, always listening, always watching videos, always listening to the podcast that you come on, and it's been a fucking privilege. So thank you so
oh,
much, Coach.
thanks, Alex. You know, Sophie's part of our family now, right? You knew that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got another one on the way from her too. Yeah, she's expecting a little girl. Yeah, so
All my love to the family. She's a
I
wonderful
will.
human being.
Uh,
Savage, absolute
yeah,
savage. So fits in perfectly.
yeah, she does. I love
And
it.
if I'm ever knocking around the west end of the states, I'll let you know. I'll come in and we'll do some snatching.
Hey, thanks a lot, Alex. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.